Hey everyone, welcome back to the Captioned Life, and in this episode, we're going to be reviewing DC Comics' Batman Beyond Neo Year. Naturally, we talk about how AI might try to take over our town. We talk about Will Friedle, who was the voice of Terry McGinnis in the original animated series. And we also talk a little bit about my TikTok rivalry, Danny O'Manny. Let's go! Hi, and welcome to The Captioned Life, a show for the most casual and dedicated fans of comics and a member of the Comic Watch family. I'm your host, Sean. Join me and discover what the world of comics and graphic novels have to offer. From one-on-one interviews with industry professionals, roundtable discussions with passionate fans, and reviews on the latest comics, TV shows, and movies. Now let's dive right on in. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the show. We are doing another comics review and commentary, and today we're going to review Batman Beyond Neo Year from DC Comics. This series ran in 2022 and was written by Jackson Lanzing and Collin Kelly, art by Max Dunbar, colored by Romulo Fajardo Jr. and Sebastian Cheng, and lettered by Aditya Bidikar. And I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly. We select the comics we're about to review in these episodes by taking the recommendation from our guest host. So please welcome to the show for a second time, Matt, aka Bumpkins. He is a comics fan of over 30 years and a lifelong fan of almost everything in the nerd realm. Matt, how you doing today, man?
Good. How are you doing?
I am hanging in there. I'm crazy busy right now because I just got back from vacation, and then I'm trying to get caught up with work at the same time as getting ready to go to C2E2 in Chicago. And you know, I'm doing stuff for this show. I'm also doing stuff for Nerd Initiative. So it's just been kind of crazy busy. So I'm like all over the place. And sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm be walking down the stairs. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Because I know there's like 5 things I had to get done. And then I get to the bottom of the stairs. I'm like, I completely forgot it.
Yeah, it's like I try to tell my son, just when you have a lot of things, just try to just do one thing at a time. Just focus on one thing. Knock one thing out, move then the next, and just so on and so on.
Right. Yeah. So that's something I have to create a list, but at this point, I'm just like, it's so close that I got everything I think in my mind, and I just don't have the time to write down the list right now before Z2E2 comes. So,
right.
Well, thanks for joining the show. What I wanted to
Thanks for
ask
having
you,
me.
yeah, what I wanted to ask you, and usually what we do is we ask our guests, what comic book, or what's their comic origin story. But you did that because you were already on the show earlier, back in December when we talked about our favorite holiday focused comics. So I thought maybe we could switch this up a little bit, and I'm going to ask you, what is your Batman Beyond origin story? What introduced you to that character? I'm pretty sure I know the answer because I think a lot of us have a similar experience. But I want to ask you, what's your Batman Beyond origin story, since we're going to be doing a review of this comic?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much like you said, probably the same for everybody that's our age. The cartoon, right? I grew up, or not grew up, but I was a kid when Batman the Animated Series came on in 1992, and watched that with a passion. And then that eventually in 1999 rolled into Batman Beyond, and I was like, well, shoot, there's another Batman cartoon. I'm definitely going to watch that. Especially since Batman the Animated Series had ended by that point, and there was a new one. I was like, whoa, this is new, and it takes place in the future. What is this?
Yeah.
It looks visually like the Batman animated series.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to watch it. And yeah, I just watched it as much as I could.
Yeah. I mean, same thing with me. I grew up, watching the Batman animated series as well. When Batman Beyond came out, loved the fact that we had another Batman animated show going out there. And just like you said, it takes place in the future. But it also still has that same style of Batman animated series, which they purposely drew it in a way to where you weren't sure if it's present day or the past, because it has some of that gothic style that they got inspired by from Tim Burton. And so Batman Beyond kind of kept that, but definitely in a futuristic style. And so they updated a lot of the technology that they were using, and everything that you kind of expect in that futuristic style that people are creating when they're creating a show that takes place in the future. And I think, this is a show that behind Batman animated series is kind of a core component of our childhood growing up, because anyone that's a fan of Batman definitely watched Batman Beyond with Terry McGinnis taking that new mantle. I know for me, I was really in love with the movie Batman Beyond Return of the Joker.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was thinking about that just a little before we came on. How
It
good that is. Oh my gosh. I think I have it on Blu-ray upstairs.
Yeah, I watched it recently, actually on Stream Lounge with somebody, and
Mm.
I hadn't watched it in years, and it still holds up. It's still a great movie, great story, great animation. They combine, the things we love about Batman animated series with having Mark Hamill coming back as the Joker, but also keeping it in the Batman Beyond realm and still being a Terry McGinnis story while putting in there, some of the history of Bruce Wayne and the Joker and Robin and all that. So that movie is definitely what I think about when I think about Batman Beyond. And I gotta say, I was really surprised when I found out that the person who voiced Terry McGinnis is Will Friedle. If you don't know who that
Yeah.
is, he is the guy that plays Corey Matthews' older brother in Boy Meets World. I forget his name in there, but it blew me away because in that show, Boy Meets World, he's just a silly, gooky kind of guy, kind of on the dumb side, just kind of absent-minded and everything like that. And then in this animated show, he has a very serious tone, just like Batman. And so I was really surprised it was the same person doing this. And I absolutely love that. And I know at C2E2, Will Friedle is actually going to be there with some of the other cast members of Boy Meets World, but I'm sure that he's probably going to get questions from Batman Beyond because,
Oh, for
again,
sure.
that fandom is definitely going to be there.
Yeah.
People who love Boy Meets World also love Batman Beyond, so I'm sure he gets questions about that all the time.
Yeah, and this led him into doing all kinds of voice work for I can't even name all the other shows that he was in, but he's done all kinds of voice work for a bunch of different stuff that
He
we've all
is.
seen over the years.
Yeah, he's been so recently I've been getting into the show called Legend of Vox Machina. Have you watched that?
Hmm. No, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I came across it just by accident, and I absolutely love that show. And I did some research on what that's about. And it comes from this group of people called Critical Role who do these Dungeons and Dragons campaigns and live stream them on Twitch. And all of them are voice actors. Like that's how they knew each other. Is they all do voice acting work, and they've done some great stuff. And Real Friedle actually has been on Critical Role a few times as a character. So he
Oh yeah.
voices a character in the second season of Vox Machina, and he just does a phenomenal job. He's a really good actor, both on screen and as a voice actor.
Yeah, and I'm looking at his IMDb page now. Just so like he's done so much stuff that like you have to hit see all to see anything past like 5 years ago. He's done
Yeah,
so much
yeah,
that it can't fit all onto one page.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's been out of the limelight since Boy Meets World, but that's because he's been behind the screen doing voice
Oh
acting,
sure.
and you don't even realize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so what's interesting is that that's been our introduction to Batman Beyond. Have you read any Batman Beyond comics yet? Besides this
Um,
one?
very few. So there was a Batman Beyond comic that I think it was several years, maybe 10 or more years ago, and I think it was digital first.
Mm-hmm.
That you could buy for like 99 cents on Comixology, and it was one of those where it was like um a half page, so you'd have to turn your iPad sideways. And that led into Justice League Beyond. I think and that spun off into a Superman Beyond comic. So I read some of those,
Mm-hmm.
but there have been like the Batman Beyond Rebirth. There was the mini series where Tim Drake was transported in the future and became Batman Beyond for a little while. Like I didn't read any of that stuff. So this comic is probably the first actual comic that I've read of Batman Beyond, other than just like a few little digital things here and there.
Right. For me, this is the first comic run that I've read of Batman Beyond. Any issue either. I haven't read anything of Batman Beyond before this, so this is going to be my first introduction to the comic characters and story of Batman Beyond. Now, I was looking up on League of Comic Geeks, and I guess this is a universe where I guess it's called Futures End, because I noticed that when they put the characters in, they put the name of the character and then they kind of put the universe that they're in, and all the characters have Futures End in there. So this must be a different universe. I've never heard of this one. My guess is this is specifically Batman Beyond and maybe some other DC properties, but
Well,
um
I don't know about that. I'd have to look at that. Future's End was a storyline that ran during the New 52.
okay.
And there was a Batman Beyond component to that, I think, but I didn't get that from any of that. That's not like a thing now. Future's End is done. Like it was just a story that
Right.
ran its course. So I'm not really sure. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't pick up on something in this.
I don't know. Well, and this is League of Comic Geek, which a lot of it is, people contribute to it,
Yeah.
who are signed up to it and everything like that. So I don't know if that's the official one or if that's one that people think, this is probably the closest that we get. Because
Yeah.
I think they're trying to make the distinction that this is not in the main continuity necessarily because of where everything is at right now. So my guess is
Yeah.
if there isn't an official designation, that's probably what they're using just to make it clear that this is not part of the main continuity, is my guess. So
Yeah, and of course, after the end of Dark Crisis, which just ended a couple months back, the Infinite Earths are back. So anything
yes.
and every DC story that you've ever read, whether it's Jurassic League or Batman 66 or whatever, and every story that exists on an Earth somewhere. So even if this isn't main, like what is it, Earth Zero? I think for DC, it's on one of the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you, why did you decide this book? Because I remember I reached out to you, and when we're talking about which series we're going to read, I gave
Mhm.
you a list of ones that I have my, unread pile. And I told you this as well. And I'm sure people have heard this from me, too, is that one of the selfish reasons why I'm doing some of these episodes is to kind of help me read my unread pile. And so when you ask, what I was interested in, I gave you some list of books that I've been meaning to read that's in my unread. And so when I told you about Batman Beyond Neo Year, that was the one that you said, yes, let's definitely read that. So I want to ask you, why was it that you were really gung-ho about wanting to read Batman Beyond Neo Year?
Well, selfishly, same reason. Like it's been sitting in my to be read pile because I bought these in single issues, so I've had them in my TBR since each one came out. I actually did read the first two issues when they came out,
Mm-hmm.
and then fell behind and never finished it up. And it's one that every time I like, if I'm flipping through all my my back issues, every time I come across it, I think, oh yeah, I need to. That was really those first two issues are really good. I need to finish that. I need to finish. I need to finish. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you brought it to me, I was like, hey, that actually would be great because I've been meaning to do that, and I really enjoyed the first third of it. Let's finish it out. Let's read the whole thing all in one sitting because I want to. I always wanted to read it. I like the art and everything in it. It's one of the ones near the top that I kept meaning to go back to, and this was a great opportunity to do it.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, I read, I think the first issue I've read was issue number 4 when I was doing a review for Comic Watch. And I absolutely loved it. So I went back to my local comic shop to try to get all the issues. And I got all of them except for issue 1 because that was already out of print by the time I went and looked for it. So I had everything read up until issue 1 was the one I was missing. And then I think I finally read it either digitally or through Comic Watch, and just decided to get the trade paperback because I didn't think I was going to get the single issue,
Mhm.
and I didn't want to have a whole series of comics and be missing an issue. So I finally got the trade paperback when it came out, and I liked it because it has also Batman Urban Legends #7, which is kind of a prequel or a setup
Mhm.
to what's going on in the story as well too. So we're going to talk about that. So all right. Well, this is our spoiler warning for anyone who's listening. If you have not read Batman Beyond Neo Year at this point and you don't want it to be spoiled for you, go ahead and put this on pause right now and save it for later. Go read Batman Beyond Neo Year. Then when you're ready, come back to this podcast or, YouTube video, however you're watching this or listening to this, and, pick up from here. So with that being said, that is everyone's spoiler warning. Let's go ahead and dive in and talk about give a synopsis about the story. So Matt and I are going to kind of go back and forth to talk about what happens in the story. With the trade paperback, as I mentioned earlier, it starts with Batman Urban Legends #7. So Matt hadn't read that because he had the single issues for the main story. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit. And the only reason why I'm doing that is because there is something in this story that I really liked. I'm going to talk about a little bit later as one of my key moments or favorite moments in the comic series. But basically, the whole synopsis of that issue is Terry McGinnis shows up in Batcave, and Bruce Wayne is laying on the ground dying, and he says that there's no way to, save him. He's going to die. Terry McGinnis finds out that what happened is something that Bruce created within the Bat computer became alive, became sentient, basically, and became self-aware, and now it's taking over Gotham. And the AI that Bruce had created inadvertently, like he didn't mean to, but he created it through the Bat computer, was the one that killed him. And so Bruce Wayne's laying on the ground, and there's this like long drawn out throughout the whole issue of Bruce kind of talking about, here's the last moments. This is going to be the last time I'm going to talk to you, and talks about something along the lines of how his father saw fear in him when his father was killed, And so he became that fear when he picked up the gun. The man wasn't, fearful of the gun. He was fearful of the person behind the gun. If you don't know the story about Batman Beyond, the whole idea is that Bruce Wayne got to a point to where he was too old, but he still wanted to be Batman to protect the city. So he created that suit that you see Terry McGinnis wears to kind of help with his body movements. And in one instance where he was trying to stop crime from happening, the suit didn't work for him. And so he was actually at a disadvantage and wasn't able to stop the crime. And then somebody was going to come up and knock him out or try to kill him. So he found a gun on the floor and picked it up and pointed at the person. And, he swore never to pick up a gun. So that really did a toll on him. So as he's dying, he's talking about that and everything. And then it kind of goes back and forth between when Bruce is dying and then Terry after that moment going out and trying to figure out who was responsible for this. And so eventually at the end, he went to the Wayne Powers building to talk to the CEO and said, who did this? Realizing that it was an AI because the AI started talking into Terry's helmet or cowl. And then basically what happened was the AI tried to kill Terry, but he got out of the office before the bomb blew up. But the CEO of Wayne Powers got blown up in that floor, and so he died basically. So that kind of sets up the whole story of Batman Beyond Neo Year. And what I thought was interesting is in that issue, they're showing Terry kind of going through all around the city. And I think they put a call out to John Timm, who was one of the creators of the Batman animated series and Batman Beyond, because they have something in the area called the Timm District. So I wonder if that's a call out to John Timm or if that's just happened to be a coincidence.
Oh,
I
you
don't
mean
think so.
Bruce Timm, right? You're talking
Oh,
about
I'm sorry, Bruce Timm. Yeah, I kept
Bruce,
saying John. Bruce Timm. I'm sorry. Yeah, Bruce Timm.
John Timms is an artist who is fantastic. I love his work. So when he said that, I was like, oh, did he draw something?
Yeah. No, and I'm going to get John Timm on the show, I think, in a couple of weeks as well, too.
Oh my gosh, he's so good.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So Bruce Timm is who I meant. So my bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
well, I'm sure it was then. That's totally an homage to him. It's got to
be. Yeah. I was about to say, there's no way that's a coincidence, right? So let's go ahead and go into issue number 1. And Matt, do you want to kind of set up like what happens at the beginning of the story?
Yeah, I mean, long story short, Gotham City. So, Gotham City has always been portrayed as a character in the Batman mythos, right? Oh, Batman and Robin and Catwoman, but also Gotham is its own character. Well, in this one, Gotham literally becomes a character. Gotham City comes alive. Now,
right.
I'm glad that you summarized that Batman Urban Legends issue because, like I said, I hadn't read that story. So at the beginning of this, I was a tiny bit confused just for a minute because I was like, wait, when did all this happen? Now, as you get into the story, it doesn't really matter because you get sucked into the moment of this story. But at the very beginning, I didn't know when all this stuff happened. But the Gotham City literally came alive as far like from an artificial intelligence perspective.
Right.
It's controlling everything. It's it can monitor everybody on cameras and it's controlling banks and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's being run by an AI basically. And so Terry has to try to figure out how to shut that down. There's also, like you said, Wayne Powers, Wayne Industries merged with, can't remember the name of the other company, but they became
like
Wayne Powers
Tech or something like that.
Yeah. And there's a new CEO, which he is he a person or he was an actual person, right? Or an AI?
He's a person. So he's from Bloodhaven. So you find out that he was actually from Nightwing's area. He grew up in Bloodhaven.
Okay.
He used to be a criminal, like ran crime or did crime in Bloodhaven. But I guess he kind of tried to, quote unquote, turn his life around. But he still kind of has that sleazy criminal, approach him. He's known as the holographic man because he has technology that can kind of change his appearance and everything. Not like Clayface necessarily, but it just he uses the bending of light to be able to make himself look good or to make things like look a certain way, which becomes an important part of this story because that's how Neo Gotham, the name of the AI that you keep hearing in the series, ends up using that technology to be able to make things happen in Gotham the way it wants to, because it wants to not increase or decrease crime, but wants to kind of keep it stable, basically. And the whole goal is to, make Gotham City Police Department and Batman obsolete because there's no reason to have them if you keep it balanced all the time. And so it uses that technology that Donovan Lumos, the person who comes from Bloodhaven, created to basically control what's going on and to create this character that we find out that he uses that it uses as kind of like it's a forcer called the Sword of Gotham. And it's a person that looks like this futuristic, almost samurai type of person, right? With a huge sword. It's really interesting because it's It's a different design. It's a flat design because it's supposed to be digital and again made out of light, but has like this physical presence and everything.
I think
So
they call
yeah,
it hard light, which is kind of like how Green Lantern
yes,
works, right? Like hard light. In
yes,
a lot of comics, I love the concept of hard light. Like anytime you see, like say, Green Lantern make a construct, or in this book, like a lot of the clothes that people wear are hard light. Or like you'll
hmm
see like in comics, like when they have like floating displays and floating keyboards, it's all hard light stuff. I love that idea of just hard light that can form anything, basically.
yeah, yeah, and that's what Neo Gotham uses like throughout the series.
Yeah.
And so Terry's trying to figure out, who's all behind this and try to stop it. And so he visits Barbara Gordon to see if she can help, but she's the commissioner at that time, and she says she's going to retire, that she's done with all this. There's a
She
new
literally
young,
says the Danny Glover, "I'm too old for this." You know
yes,
what? Well, she doesn't really say that in the book, but that's her attitude. I'm too
that's
old for this.
yeah,
I'm out of here.
yeah. Well, and this story takes a lot of influence from a lot of places, and I think we're going to talk about that. But there's a lot of references to pop culture and movies, shows, etc., that takes place in the future as well too.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so Terry's trying to get help, and he even goes to, I think they're called the Jokers. It's supposed to be a
Yeah.
gang of criminals that dress up as the Joker and everything. But he's trying to get help to figure out how to stop all this. And so he visits Barbara Gordon. There's a new character named Sunbeam Booma that is a young detective in the Gotham City Police Department that he ends up trying to get on his side and help out and everything. He runs into this 3-person entity called Gestalt, or Gestalt, I'm sorry, I think is how it's pronounced. It's very reminiscent of the Minority Report, right? Because the
Yeah.
Minority Report has like those 3.
The precogs.
Yes, exactly. And it's not exactly how they work. They're not precogs, but they're all one entity. Like they share a hive mind in a sense, and they work together. They're 3 beings, separate beings, but they're all connected. So he tries to get them to help, but they said that Gotham's beyond saving, and so they run away. And so he's trying to get this all figured out, and then we find out that later at Barbara Gordon's retirement party that again Donovan Lumos is throwing. She announces she retires, and then Donovan Lumos says that Wayne Powers will fund Gotham City Police Department, and Terry, Barbara Gordon, Sunbeam Booma all lost their shit. And couldn't believe it, right? So later on, like what happens later on? Do you remember what happens when they make that announcement? I know he talks to Booma, then I think he is trying to figure out what happened to the mayor because the mayor's been missing for 3 days. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. He says that the mayor's been missing. They do. We're going full spoilers, right?
Yeah, yeah. This is
Yeah.
a spoiler part. Yeah, so we're good.
Yeah. So they, they later find out that the mayor's been killed. And Terry just tries to try to figure out like how to stop the city. Like, how do you stop a city that is controlling everything? When the city can see you coming. And one of the cool things about this whole story is that yeah, Batman Beyond is all about technology, right? He's got a
Yes,
high-tech suit and he's in the future, but
that's
he has to
right.
go back to basics. Like he has to rip all the technology out of his suit because it tells Gotham where he is and that he's coming, and that's how the
Yes.
Sword of Gotham knows how to combat it. So he has to take out all the technology.
Hmm.
He comes up with a face mask that scrambles his face from cameras and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, it's one of the creepy parts. It was revealed that this AI in this specific retirement home, every time a new baby is born in Neo Gotham, this AI
Yes.
poisons one meal in this retirement home to kill off one older person to keep the population balanced. Like you said,
Hmm.
like it wants to keep everything perfectly balanced. And I thought that was really creepy. But
Yeah.
it eventually comes down to uh, Terry having to band together, like you said, the Jokers and some retired Gotham police officers and Barbara Gordon to face off against Lumos and
Hmm.
this AI to bring them all down. He needs the help of Gestalt. Gets a new suit, which I thought was really cool, which
The
wasn't
new
too
shoot
far
was
different from.
amazing. Yeah, because
Yeah, it's
they
not too
designed it
far off
to
from.
say that again. Sorry.
I was gonna say it's not too far off from like his main suit. Like it didn't look too drastically different, but it
No.
did use that hard light concept, and
Yeah.
it's just a big showdown of against Lumos, but also this AI that controls everything. And the big, you might think, well, how, it's an AI, just unplug it. But like this AI, it turns out that what we learn about the Sword of Gotham is that the AI uses the hard light technology to make anybody
Right.
the Sword of Light, or the Sword of
Right.
Gotham, excuse me. And so, he thinks he defeated him at one point, but then another one comes in, and at the end, it converts everybody because everybody has like these things in their skin because of the hard light technology that makes
Yeah.
them appear however they want.
Mm-hmm.
The AI makes everybody this Sword of Gotham character with this giant sword, and it controls their movement so it can make them a really badass fighter.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes Terry and his ragtag gang of ne'er-do-well jokers and retired cops to take them all down and
Yes.
regain control of the city, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's exactly what happens. And it's funny that you're talking about the Neon Knights because Booma got
Mm,
was taken over and was sort of Gotham at one point. And
that's
so
right.
that's what made Terry, take her to try to save her because, she was going to die at that point, and said he had to get somewhere away from where the AI is not. And so it goes back to Wayne Manor and had to stall, spend like 3 months trying to figure out
Yeah,
what's going on, because not only are they trying to help her and cure her, but they wanted to use that technology to figure out how to defeat Neo Gotham by understanding the AI. So that's what they did eventually. Is that when Terry was on its final battle with the Sword of Gotham with Neo Gotham, Gestalt somehow uploaded their new software to stop the Lumos technology from working, and then updated their own software so they like isolated the AI to be like in one single spot, or at least couldn't control anything anymore, basically. And so that's how they
yeah.
saved everybody. But what's funny is here's a funny thing, and then here's the thing I noticed as well too. A funny thing is Donovan Lumos, they paint it as though he's like somehow involved with this, right? Like willingly. We know that Neo Gotham is using the hardlight technology that Lumos created to do all this stuff. So you think that Donovan Lumos is also behind it, but you find out he's not. And I remember Terry saying something to him about, you got to stop doing this and everything. And then Donovan says, like, I don't know why you're doing this, or you bring in that, all those samurai knights, or the swords and all those guys. And Terry's like, oh, you don't know what's going on? Because it's clear that Donovan didn't realize that Terry is not, he's trying to fight the Sword of Gotham. He's not, with him and everything. And Donovan's like, I know everything that's going on. And then the next panel is like, what do I not know?
Right, right.
But the other thing I thought was really interesting is going back to the suit, because he had to abandon the suit very early in the story. But then you hear Terry talk about how he has limited resources now since Bruce is gone. Wayne Manor is destroyed essentially. And so when he throws the Batarang, he only has a few of them left. When he uses the rocket fuel to fly around and it's completely gone, like that's it. He can't fly around anymore. And it's really interesting because you see him talking to Bruce in his mind as he's going through this whole story of saying, like, I hear your voice in my head still telling me to do this, do that. But as all the equipment is, being used and he doesn't have access to that anymore, you kind of feel a sense of him of like losing Bruce, because he's losing those physical representation of Bruce Wayne and his technology to be Batman. And so when he finally gets rid of the suit and all the equipment, like he's finally free of Bruce, like physically. And so you kind of see him like being sad about that. And even though he doesn't really allude to that, he's talking about those things as though he's losing Bruce all over in that sense. And so I thought it was really interesting how they wrote that to kind of reflect that. So
Yeah, that whole thing, throughout all 6 issues, he's writing in a diary because he says, I finally found paper so that I can
yes.
I can write these notes to you. And through all 6 issues, and it's pretty heavy. Like there's a lot of it all throughout each issue where you're basically you're reading what he's writing to Bruce, even though Bruce is dead, but
Mm-hmm.
those are his thoughts. I remember what you taught me, and I'm doing this just how you taught me, and swinging through the city instead of using rocket fuel makes me,
Right.
takes me back to the early days, or makes me realize how you used to do it, that kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
that part was really interesting. Their dynamic, even though Bruce wasn't in it, but it's almost like he was, and they still had that
Yes.
connection.
Yeah, because you always talk about like what Bruce would have said in that situation to
Yeah.
him because it was
Yeah,
for
I can
so
hear your
long.
voice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
one
then
thing
at
that
the
you mentioned too, oh, sorry, I was going to say, one thing I found really interesting about this is this story takes place like time passes in this story. Like you said, he spent 3 months near the end at Wayne Manor trying to get what Booma? Is that her name?
yeah, Booma try to
Yeah,
save Booma. Yeah.
trying to save her and trying to get a new suit and trying to just sort of recoup himself. But there's several parts in the story where he talks about it's been a month since this, but it's done in a cool way where it's not just like overtly 1 month later, 6 weeks later. There is one point, where it does say 3 months later when he's in the
Yeah.
manor. But
Right.
before that, there's just like little like story beats, like it's been a month since this happened, or 6 weeks ago that happened. And so like this story, usually with these miniseries, it's like, oh, a couple days or a week or whatever, but
Hmm.
time passes over the course of this story, which I think really helps add some gravitas to it. It's like, oh, the city has been using this technology for a while, and
Right.
the AI has been running rampant for a good long while. It's not just like, oh, there's this brand new thing and he shut it down real quick. No, it was around for a
Yeah.
while.
Well, and at the beginning of the story, you find out that because Lumos becomes the CEO, he said that he's going to have these three huge galas by the end of
Mhm.
the year. And so I think that's part of the reason why it's called Neil years, because it takes place in an entire year.
Yeah,
So
you're
the
right.
first
I didn't think
issue is
about
like at
that.
the beginning, and then I think gala for Barbara Gordon's retirement, I think, was in issue 3, if I remember correctly. And so yeah, so it takes place in the former year, but you're right. It's one of those things where he kind of explains, how much time has gone past, and not just how much time has passed, but what has happened during that time
You're
in a
right.
very succinct way. And it was done very well from the writers. And so yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I think that was really cool. So yeah, so that's Neil Year. That's a Batman Beyond Neil Year in a shell, which I think we covered that in like 15 minutes or something like that. But one thing I did in the last episode is I talked about how I wanted to try to figure out a good way to succinctly summarize these comics as we're doing these episodes. And the latest thing right now is the AI tool, funny enough, called Chat GPT, right? So in the last episode, I tried to use that, and it was way off base because I asked it to give me a issue by issue summary of the many deaths of Layla Starr. And it's interesting because the first paragraph they had everything right. They said, it was written by this person, it was published by this company, blah blah blah. First paragraph was like spot on, but then when you read the story, you're like, this story is not what I read. I don't know where it got this information. It was putting in characters, it was putting in storylines that did not exist. And so I thought it was just really funny that it came up with all these things that it was supposed to be, AI that everyone's kind of, not everyone, but some people are freaking out about. But when I'm doing this, it's like it's so off the mark that I
Yeah.
thought it was funny. So I did the same thing for this episode, Batman
Okay.
Beyond Neo Year. So let me tell you what happened. I put in the prompt that said, give me an issue by issue summary of Batman Beyond Neo Year. And its first response says, I'm sorry, but I can't provide an issue by issue summary because there's no such comic book series or storyline.
What?
Uh, so I gave another prompt and kind of rephrased it and typed it differently. The first time I put Neo dash year. The second time I asked it again, but I said from DC Comics entitled Neo Year without the hyphen. And it says, I apologize, but there's no Batman Beyond comic book series entitled Neo Year. But I did find something called Batman Beyond the Next Batman, which was released in 2021. And then it gave me a whole summary. So then I finally gave another prompt and I said, there is, all caps, IS, a comic book arc called Batman Beyond Neo Year. It had the cursor blinking for a good 2 or 3 minutes. And then it says, I apologize for my earlier response. You are correct, which I'm like, yeah, I know I'm correct. I'm holding the book right in my hand. And then it says, here's an issue by issue summary of the 4-part storyline. And it says it's issue 37 through 40, which is not true. We know it's 1 through 6. And again, the story is way off base. It's putting in characters like Blight. It says it's in the story, which is not at all. Who's another person? This person named Split with spelled Splitt,
Yeah.
which I'm not familiar with. So I don't know if it just made up that character or not. And then also talk about Ink, Inque, which I remember from the
Yeah.
anime series, but Ink was not in this story as well either. So ChatGPT just does some really funny things when you're trying to ask it to summarize a comic book story. So I'm going to put that, if you're interested in reading those results, I'm going to put that on the episode webpage, which will be in the show link, or I'm sorry, in the show notes. And I'll just copy and paste in there so you can read it for yourself. What was the result when I put that stuff in there?
So what you're saying is we're still a ways off from an AI taking over an entire city.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, honestly,
I've never
last
used
5
that
years,
before, but
AI has really jumped. Like the fact that AI can create videos on its own and stuff like that. Like it's not
yeah.
perfect by any means, but just the fact that it's able to do that. But at the same time, it seems like the AI is definitely contained. I know some people are getting freaked out by that, but it seems like it's a lot more contained than what people realize as well too. So
yeah.
All right, so that's a summary. Let's talk about our overall thoughts. Or before we get to that, sorry, let me let me start over here. So that's a summary of the story. I want to share what a couple of listeners who also read the series, what their thoughts were. And I only got a couple people, but I really appreciate them doing this. I kind of put this at the last minute because I completely forgot to do that because, again, I'm trying to prepare for C2E2. But in our Discord server, the Lunacasters, Carson said, such a good story arc for probably my favorite fictional character ever, which I can see that. Like it's a great character. Everybody loves Batman Beyond. I haven't met somebody that hasn't yet. And then on Twitter, at Grimace Wayne, who's a great person, I absolutely love his Twitter account. He said, this shit was amazing, all caps. Terry deserves an ongoing. I enjoyed the dialogue of him talking to dead Bruce. The art was immaculate. The whole thing was mind-blowing. So thank you both for sharing your thoughts on this series. Matt, overall, I know we talked about, our thoughts about the series as we were describing it, but overall thoughts about the series that you wanted to share before we dive into some of our key moments and things we wish would have changed.
I really, really enjoyed it. Like after this, I got on the DC Universe Infinite app and it was just like looking at all the various other Batman Beyond series that I know exist, but I just never read, and it made me want to read some of those. But I really liked it. One thing that I really liked that I noticed right off the bat, it's the first thing that I notice anytime I open a comic, and that is the art, right? Because comics are a visual medium, and you notice art, and I love the art in this. To me, like, really good art can make a mediocre story better, but really bad art can make a good story less interesting, because if I'm not engaged with what I'm looking at, I'm not really caring about the story. But this was both. This was great art and a great story. I didn't want it to end. Like I was like, obviously the story lasts for 6 issues, but like I was just thinking, why is this a miniseries? Like, give me a number 7 and start a new story arc, and I'll just keep going. I just thought, like, I thought it was amazing. The artwork, the story. I love the idea of an AI controlling everything, and how do you combat that when you have a suit full of tech and you have to go old school to combat the new thing,
right?
The only I didn't really love the third issue, like you said. I think that was Barbara's retirement, because that was a whole lot of talking and setting up the last half of the story. Not a lot happened in that one.
Not until like the final page. Like there wasn't a whole lot of action or anything. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but not that I need everything to be action all the time, but this one was just like very like text heavy and just not a lot happened. So, but other than that, like I thought it was fantastic. It did say at the very, very end that Batman Beyond will return or continue in 2023, which got me really excited. The only thing that makes me nervous about that is this came out in 2022, so obviously they're thinking ahead for the future, which is great, but we know a lot of DC's plans for this year with the Dawn of DC stuff. We know what they're planning to release all the way through at least June, and some of the stuff in September. And so far, not a peep of Batman Beyond. So that makes me a little bit nervous. But it's not, there's still plenty of time for them to roll out something else. But I wish I had read other Batman Beyond comics to compare this to, because it had a long run in Rebirth for like 50 issues, I think.
That's what I've heard.
I just didn't read that stuff, but I can speak for this. I thought I really, really enjoyed this. Like I read them all at the same time. And sometimes even with a miniseries, I might read a little bit and then take a little break, go do something else, come back the next day. But I read all of these back to back because it was just that good.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed the whole series here as well too. And I thought the writing, I don't know much about Lanzing or Kelly's work as writers. Right. I don't know if I read any of their stuff before, but I really I'm always appreciate anybody that can do a really good balance of dialogue and narration, because I feel like those are sometimes hard to do if you don't do it correctly, especially with some of the art and flow and everything like that. But I thought they nailed that here very, very well. The art was really good. I had a couple of issues with the art, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but overall, I really enjoyed the art. The new suit I thought was really cool. Like you said, there wasn't a lot of new design to it, other than it was more like an enhanced suit. So it's one of those
Yeah.
things like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But it fixed it with the hard light. And so it's like the same suit, but, souped up basically.
Yeah.
I got to give props to the letterer here, Bidikar, because I thought the lettering was phenomenal, especially when it came to Gestal. I don't know if people know this
Oh
when they're reading
yeah.
comics, but the letterers don't just write the letters, they write the speech bubbles. They design the speech bubbles. And Gestalt speech bubbles were really cool in terms of showing like how it's supposed to sound. And it's like a digital, like the way they did is like a green speech bubble because they're all green, but then it has some of those pink digital lines that went
Yeah.
around
Like
it.
pixels.
Yes, exactly. And I absolutely love that. I love it when letterers really get into how can I do this to make it, visually to show you visually how it's supposed to sound, which is why next time you read a comic book that has Iron Man in there, his speech bubble is always different when he's in his Iron Man suit because it has like the red and yellow, not just to show that as his color, but if you look at the lines, it's supposed to sound like a digital microphone sound when he's talking, right? I thought they did the same thing right here. I absolutely love that. And anytime you see any letters show up on the page, like, sound effects and stuff like that, that's the letterer. And I thought they did a great job here. So I absolutely enjoyed the series. I thought they did a really good job. It's probably, one of my favorite ones from DC Comics for sure. So let's dive into some of our key or favorite moments. So Matt, what's a favorite moment you have from this comic series?
um well, I like, not to sound superficial, but I really liked when he got the new suit, right? Because
Yeah.
one thing that's always, even with the cartoon, one thing that always bugged me with the suit is and like Steel, the character Steel has this too. I've never liked
Yeah.
characters who are supposedly wearing a helmet or like a hard thing on their head, but they still have the mouths and the
Yeah.
lips, and you can still see their teeth. Like I hate that,
Right.
and it's always bugged me about this. With the new suit, he still has that, but it's not just like all black now. There is a part of it where it looks like a cowl,
Yes.
but his face is then just still covered in black. It just looks
Mm-hmm.
different. And I think that's all hard light stuff because there was a moment where it like just vanishes, and but it's not like the
Yes.
nanotech like in the MCU. Like it just it's I think it's hard light stuff. So I
Mm-hmm.
really like the new suit stuff, but I think I don't know about just one moment, but like I've said before, I just like the fact that he has always been a tech-based hero, but now he's not. And he went back to basics and kind of showed that he was trained by Batman. And even without all
Yes.
this tech, he can still handle himself
Mm-hmm.
because he was trained by the best. So
It's
all the
not the
fights
suit.
with
It's not the suit that makes him. It's
yeah,
him.
the suit
Yeah.
enhances him, but he's still in control of all that stuff, and he knows the tactical thinking that he has to wield in this, along
Mm-hmm.
with the combat moves and the strength and stuff is great. But all the battles with Sword of Gotham were great because Sword of Gotham had a really cool design too, and that big giant sword,
Yes.
and if Batman Beyond is or Batman is low on resources, but yet the Sword of Gotham has a giant sword, and who's going to win out, and
Mm-hmm.
just all that kind of stuff I just thought was really cool. And then, like I said, I've always enjoyed stories of AI like taking over something and how do you combat something that's everywhere
Right.
that encompasses every part of your life and your surroundings. Like finding a way to overcome that, I just think is wildly interesting.
Yes. Well, and especially like today when we're seeing a bunch of AI tools, becoming more commonplace for people to use.
Yeah.
Um, that goes into one of my favorite moments or favorite aspects of this series is it is a meta reflection on how AI is pervasive and just exists in our current world as well too, because it uses things that we're already familiar with, but kind of show how AI can, not just manipulate things, but also kind of think about how to control things without the person knowing, basically, right? Because the general population do not know that things are being manipulated. Like they know that, oh, crime is, kind of balanced. It's not going up, it's not going down. Like they don't question that because the AI is smart enough to know how to do that without bringing up suspicion unless you're Batman, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that's something that people are really concerned about is can AI end up being like controlling us or we don't even realize it? And it's very similar. I talked about this earlier, how there's a lot of influences from pop culture. Like this has a very Matrix style kind of feel to the comic series, especially with the Sword of Gotham, because the Sword of Gotham moves from person to person, just like how Agent Smith does and the other agents,
Yeah.
where they can just possess somebody and turn into that. And so it has a lot of those reflections and influences. I mentioned, Minority Report with Gestalt and all that. So I really enjoyed how it looks at AI in terms of something that can be a problem to look at that is not really new, but I think because of this day and age that we're actually seeing AI happening, not just, in small labs or anything like that, but it seems like it's, kind of showing up everywhere, that it's a commentary on what are some questions we need to ask about artificial intelligence to make sure that humanity is still protected and safe from being what's the word I'm looking for? Not isolated, but being, obsolete, basically.
Yeah.
So in this series, what's something that you wish was different, or something that they added that maybe you're disappointed with, or you're kind of confused? Is there something that you would change or like to see in this series?
So, and like I said at the very, very beginning, I was a little confused because Bruce Wayne was already dead,
Right.
and I didn't know how it all started. So maybe if I had read that Batman Urban Legends, but I just feel like Bruce being dead wasn't as big a deal as it probably should have been.
Uh-huh.
And maybe I would have gotten that if I had read that, but it's like I said, when I first started, it's like, oh, he was already dead, and like everybody's just like, oh, okay, he's dead, not a big thing. But like, Terry just sort of accepted it and moved on, and nobody else really, Barbara didn't really feel remorseful or anything like that. So that I just thought that was a little bit weird, but that could
Mhm.
come from my lack of not having read, or my lack of the fact that I didn't read the first story.
Right. Well, I mean, the way you describe it is very much like A Christmas Carol, was just said, Bob Marley was dead to begin with. Like that's just
Yeah.
how it kind of opens. Bruce Wayne's dead,
Mm.
and it seems to be reality. And I think Barbara Gordon didn't seem like she was, grieving in that process, and maybe she already did. We just didn't see on page. But they did have a nice moment where she sees Dick Grayson, who I think is like the commissioner of the police in Bloodhaven, and she had said something about like what Bruce always thought about him. And he said like that was probably one of the nicest things he's ever heard, from Bruce, and the
Yeah.
fact that she shared that, so it was a really touching moment. For me, the thing I wish would have been different is we had touched this earlier in the episode, that the titling when they're trying to show like 3 months later, or like a
Yeah.
location like Gotham City or something like that. For me, it was very hard to read. Like I didn't know what it was supposed to say. It took me probably a good 2 or 3 minutes to figure out what it was trying to say. And I get it, because they're trying to get the lettering to look kind of futuristic, but it was very hard. It was one of those, if you haven't seen this yet, it does one of those like text masking where the image is inside the text. And so anything
It's
outside of
that
it,
page
yeah.
right there. So if I
Yes.
hold it back, like no, probably on your monitor on your phone or whatever, like you can't see that. Like in even when I was reading it, I was actually laying in bed and I was reading this, and I was like, I feel like that says something. And I
Yeah.
had to like sort of hold it back and kind of blur my eyes. And I said, oh, I think it says THR3. Oh, is this a 3 months later? But yeah, it's a whole page,
Yeah.
and it's the same image basically of the city, just like it's
Right.
sunny and then it's raining and then it's like whatever, but it's in, yeah, I
Yeah.
that part threw me for a loop too,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
but thankfully like there's not, that's the only time this shows up, is that page right there.
Yeah. And
But
you're
yeah, I
not
was like
really,
doing this and
yeah. And you're not missing like critical information necessarily. It's just supposed to show that time has passed, but
yeah.
it took me a long time to figure out what that was saying.
Yeah.
And I think there's other time where they're trying to do the location and say things like Gotham, and it took me a while to figure out like what it actually said. So, I mean, if that's my biggest beef, it's still a good story, I believe.
Oh yeah.
It just, I hate it when it takes me a long time to figure out like what's going on in a page, because I feel like it shouldn't be that sort of thing. And that one would just drive me nuts because I had no idea what it was saying and then when I finally figured it out, I was like, God, I could have turned the page and just kept going with the story.
Right.
So, all right. So let's end with another favorite moment of ours or aspect of the comic series of Batman Beyond. I don't know if you have another one you want to share, or.
Gosh, nothing I can think of that. Like I said, I love all the hard light stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that concept in comics.
Right.
But I did love the passage of time. We were talking about like I just thought because it would have been so easy to just like have this take place over the course of a week or a couple weeks, and that would have made less sense because it's like, well, how did this AI take over? And everybody's using this new hard light stuff and like these wearable, like hard light clothes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
If it's only been a couple weeks, it's not that big of a deal. But the fact that they had that forethought to say we need to make sure this takes place over like you said, a year at least.
Right.
I thought that helped. That helped enhance it.
It did. Yeah. Um, for me, technically, this isn't part of the Batman Beyond series. This is the issue that was the prequel in Batman Urban Legends #7. I absolutely love anytime that a creator tries to do something different with the medium of reading comics. So, for example, one of my favorite things I love to share about a comic book is Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo.
I know what
And
you're gonna say. Yeah.
yeah, where he's in the labyrinth from the Court of Owls,
Mm-hmm.
and you, as a reader, have to like turn it when you turn the page. You turn it, and it feels like you're experiencing the labyrinth by doing that, right? And I absolutely love that. I remember when that happened, I read it like 3 or 4 times in a row because I thought that was so cool because I've never done that with a comic book before. And Batman Urban Legends, it doesn't do that same thing, but they did something very different that I thought was just beautiful. So what happened is Terry told the Bat computer to go ahead and self-destruct the Wayne Manor because the AI was still trying to get in and kill Bruce and him. And so you see him running up the steps of the Bat Cave and going out of the manor. But the way it's done, and if you ever look at the page here, is that the page starts at the top left of him running through the stairs, and it just kind of goes this zigzag basically. But as he's doing this zigzag, at the bottom middle of the page is Bruce Wayne, I think, kind of, it's like a memory or something like that. Bruce Wayne, I think, talking to Terry or something like that. And then when he gets to the middle of the page, when the zigzag, you see the moment of Bruce Wayne deciding that he's going to be Batman in front of his parents' portrait.
Yeah.
And then when he gets to the top and getting out of the Wayne Manor, you see the moment where Bruce Wayne as a kid is pretty much alone on his own after his parents died. And so I thought it was really cool because there was a lot of symbolism was going on there. Like, it's not just Terry running out of the Wayne Manor and having to, abandon it completely, but it shows how Wayne Manor is also a pivotal moment, a pivotal place for Bruce Wayne in these series of events that led him to Batman, and then eventually Terry McGinnis being Batman. So the art was just phenomenal on that page. I absolutely love it. I can't get over that. I thought it was so cool how they did that because it's not just, showing him running out of the mansion, but it's kind of saying like, here's a final goodbye to Bruce Wayne as, Batman as we know it, basically, because not only is Bruce Wayne dying, but Wayne Manor that represents him physically is also going to go away in this story.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about comic books is that visual storytelling, right? If you're reading not knocking novels, but if you're reading a novel, you're just like, oh, Terry runs up the stairs, whatever. But just a comic book, you open and the story is being told not only through the words but through the visuals and the art, and that's one thing I love too. And they do a couple things like that here I'd forgotten about, but like in this part right here where Batman is facing up against the Jokers, in this one sort of long horizontal panel.
Yeah.
That's one single panel, but like I love that motion of him doing this, and then he jumps through the guy, and then he flips and kicks the other guy in the face.
Yes, yeah.
I love stuff like that. Like Bruno Redondo does a lot of that kind of stuff in the Nightwing series.
Mm-hmm.
Just anytime you see like a sequence like that, where you see just multiple figures of one character as they do that kind of motion. There's another example of that too. I almost want to say it's almost a whole page of something like this in a later issue, but that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I love that. I love seeing that.
Yeah, I love it anytime they try to do something different with the medium in terms of how you read it and experience it. And that was just a great example of that. I absolutely love it. So it's definitely one of my favorite pages I love to share with people. So, all right. So that is Batman Beyond Neo Year. So we went through the summary of it and some of our favorite things about it, as well as things that we would like to see changed. Before we end this episode, we always end with sharing what comics we're reading. Now, right now, we're recording this a week ahead of time. So we're actually recording this on a Tuesday and it's coming out next week. So I'm not going to be able to share what other people are reading just because we just did that for the previous episode. And so I didn't feel like there was enough time to pass for people to share anything new. So it's just going to be Matt and I sharing what we're reading. So Matt, why don't you share with us what you're currently reading in comics right now?
Yeah, well, mostly right now it's just all the new stuff that's coming out. Like, so we're recording this on a Tuesday. Today's new DC day at my LCS.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been riding high on the Dawn of DC stuff, like the new Superman series. Obviously, I love World's Finest, and last week both of those came out on the same day, so I was loving life then. But
Yeah.
doing the typical Marvel stuff too. Amazing Spider-Man, She-Hulk was fantastic last week. So just doing a lot of new stuff, but my sort of thing that I'm also reading when I'm done with those is I am super psyched for the new Green Arrow series that launches April 25th, part of the new Dawn of DC. My buddy who works at my LCS, they got an advance copy. A lot of retailers will get advance copies like a month ahead of time, like a digital PDF.
Right.
And he read it yesterday and said that it's fantastic. So I can't wait to read it. So in preparation for that, I realized that I started and never finished the Green Arrow from the Rebirth era from 2016, and it ran for like 50 issues, however long, 4 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go back and start that, and I'm going to read the whole thing. So I'm just a few issues in to Green Arrow, the Rebirth era so the Green Arrow series from 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I started that over because I think I only read like a dozen issues or so, and it's awesome. I'm just like riding high on Green Arrow right now, like anything Green Arrow. I love that character. So once I'm done with the new stuff, I go back and am working my way through Green Arrow from a few years ago.
Yeah. And you've been talking about Green Arrow, I think for at least a month now, if not longer, because I've seen you do TikToks and posts and stuff like that. I can tell that you're really excited.
I'm so excited because it's one of those things where it's only going to be a 6-issue miniseries. But there's potential for it to get extended if the sales are good and the reception's good. To maybe a 12-issue limited series, or maybe an ongoing, like what happened with Poison Ivy. And Joshua Williamson, who is the writer, said that he has plans for the story beyond the 6 issues, and he wants to feature more of the Arrow family, develop more of those characters. But he can't do it all in just 6 issues, so it needs to get extended. So I'm trying to, I'm a nobody on the internet, but I'm just trying to like put as much energy as I can out there. Everybody pre-order, get this, make the sales good. It can get extended. We'll get more of this, and it'll snowball into an ongoing, that kind of thing. So I'm just trying to hype it as much as I can. But
that's awesome. Well, you know what? I might have to add that. I'll wait a little bit, but I'll probably have to add that to my pull list. Like, just the fact that you're saying all this, like, is getting me excited. I've never read any Green Arrow stuff, so maybe this will be a good one for me to start with. So
it'd be a great place to start. Number one, with a fantastic creative team, and they're very passionate about the character too. So it'd be a great place to start.
Awesome. For me, I this week when I'm pulling from my comics shop, and this is no surprise to anybody that knows me, but Daredevil #9 is coming out this week.
Oh, is that this week? Oh,
it's this week. Yeah. At least according to League of Comics Geek, it told me that it's coming out this week. And we just got the news, not too long ago, that this run is actually ending in August, and so this is going to be coming to an end for this current run of Daredevil, which I think this one is called the Red Fist Saga, if I remember correctly. Yeah. I will say this. I know you said you weren't a fan of it. Like, you weren't, it didn't appeal to you by any means, but issue number 10 has an Eastman variant coming out, and I love all the Eastman art. Like, anytime he's doing a variant for anything, I try to pick that up instead of the main cover. And so I am picking that up. But I know you said, it doesn't appeal to you at all, right?
Yeah, I mean, which is weird. I'm a huge fan of Kevin Eastman, right? Because he created the Ninja Turtles with Peter Laird. So like, I worship the guy, but his art just kind of doesn't really do it for me. So especially, I don't know.
That's kind of how I am with Alex Ross, right? Like, it's phenomenal, but I would not go and get it because it just doesn't appeal to me. Like, I appreciate the art, and that is really good, but it's just like, it's not for me. So I totally get that. I understand that.
I don't think it's bad. Like, I don't like to say that any artist is bad because I can't draw to save my life. So it's just not my preference. It's just not my style that I gravitate towards. That's all it is.
Yeah. And speaking of art, so that Danny and Manny have a good, rivalry, but we're actually friends on TikTok. We played on Fortnite and talk to each other all the time. One of his videos, he actually drew Daredevil. And I commented on this video. I said, you got to send that to me. I want it now. And you got to sign it. He's like, are you serious? And I told him, I was like, yes, this will be like my April O'Neil moment in the Ninja Turtles movie where she's drawing all the turtles.
Oh, that's right.
That's what this is for me. So if you send it to me, I will hang it up in my office.
That's right. That was a great scene.
Yeah, yeah. I'm also picking up Dark Knights of Steel #10, which I absolutely love this run. I just don't like how it takes them forever to put out an issue, because I think when it got to issue 6 or 7, it stopped for the longest time.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be 12 issues, I believe. And so I'm looking forward to that. It's a great story. I absolutely love it. And then the other one I'm picking up this week is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers / Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle crossover, Volume 2, issue number 4. I have not read the first volume yet, and I not read the issues for the second volume yet. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to read through that, but I'm collecting it right now for the single issues. I've heard nothing but great things about this. I think in the last episode I talk about how I only got this because I saw the variant cover from Eastman and Williams where they did the split Raphael and the Green Power Rangers, and I thought it was phenomenal. And that's like one of the only times that seeing a variant cover made me decide to get a whole series. So I'm picking that up this week as well.
Yeah, I'm wanting to read that. I didn't read the first volume either. And I've never really been the biggest Power Rangers guy. I've never read any Power Rangers comics, but
same here.
Them with the Turtles, and Dan Moore did all the covers for the first volume. I think he's doing the interiors for this volume.
I think he is. Yeah,
that sells me right there. Like I want to try it out. It looks good and fun, and I'm gonna pick that up. I'm gonna pick up probably both of them. The first one's in trade, and when the second one's in trade, I'll probably just get them both.
Yeah. I mean, same here. I grew up with Power Rangers. I loved them on the television show, but I never read the comics, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes. Well, that is it for the episode. Matt, thanks for coming on the show. Before I let you go, where can we find you and your work online?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And TikTok is the one I focus on most. And it's Bumpkins TV.
Right.
I just had to have something to different. Bumpkins was taken everywhere, so I had to put TV on the end. But yeah.
Yeah. And I'll make sure I got your Linktree link, so I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, everything's in the Linktree. Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So I'll put that in. Well, thanks again for joining. I always appreciate having you on the show. You're welcome to come back anytime. If you come up with another comic you want to do, let's do it.
Well, I will send you a picture of my massive to be read pile, and we'll just work our way through it all.
Sounds good.
It's been a great motivation to get this done,
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And that wraps up another episode of The Captioned Life. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. You can follow us on social media at Captioned Life. For more information about us and all of our previous episodes, visit thecaptionedlife.com.